There's Something Wrong with the Empty Apartment Next to Mine by Mortonax on r/no sleep. I had only moved in a week ago. The apartment was in a good spot, not in the busiest part of the city, but still easy to reach. I managed to rent a place on the top floor of a 5-story building. Up here, the hallway was already quite narrow, and there weren't many apartments. In fact, on this top floor there were only 4. Mine in the far right corner, at the end of the hall, next to an apartment that supposedly had been empty for years. Then another one that had been under renovation for a long time. And at the opposite end lived an elderly woman, all alone. When the landlord showed me around, I immediately fell in love with the place. There weren't many tall buildings in the neighborhood, so it felt like you were above the city itself, able to see far into the distance and enjoy the sight of the distant trees and the sunset. That apartment felt like a dream. Without hesitation, I decided to take it. Within a few days I had moved in, and I thought to myself, I couldn't have been luckier. Maybe about a week had passed when I first heard the noises. One night, in the middle of my sleep, I was jolted awake. It sounded as if someone had toppled over a wardrobe, or maybe some heavy piece of furniture. I sat up in bed, immediately startled. Where could such a loud crash have come from? I quickly switched on my small lamp on my nightstand, just in case it was a burglar, or who knows what. Then it came again, a loud bang, but this time it sounded like a door slamming shut, followed by heavy footsteps. The sounds were coming from the apartment next door, the one right beside me. I sat there in confusion. The landlord had told me that the place had been empty for years. An elderly couple had lived there once. They had a child, but he moved abroad, and the apartment was left to decay. And now it sounded as someone was unpacking or even moving. At 1 a.m, I glanced at the clock. Sure enough, it was exactly 1 a.m. Again came the noise, like boxes tumbling over. Just my luck, I thought. I finally moved into my dream apartment, and now some lunatic decides to move in next door in the middle of the night. I got up, went to the living room, and I checked if the front door and windows were locked. I was still a little paranoid, being to a new place, but everything was secure. I poured myself a glass of water and went back to bed. After all, I had work in the morning. I didn't want to spend the whole night listening to someone rearranging furniture. Thankfully, I was tired enough that sleep eventually pulled me under, though the noises went on. When my alarm woke me in the morning, not a sound could be heard, just like when I moved in a week earlier. In the morning, I just rushed out of my apartment. I still gave the neighbor's door an angry look, but I didn't have time for anything. Work was waiting at the office. My day went by quickly, just an average Tuesday. On the way home, I grabbed some Chinese food for dinner. Perfect. At home, I watched TV. I didn't have anything better to do than watch stupid shows. Quiz shows were my favorite. But since they weren't very exciting, I fell asleep on the couch right after dinner with the TV still on. I nearly screamed when I woke up. The couch had actually trembled beneath me. It felt like a ton of dirt had just crashed down somewhere, or like a train was thundering by on the street outside. It lasted only a second, but in my half-sleep state, it terrified me. What was happening? I pushed myself up from the couch and went to splash water on my face to wake up a little. Then I heard it again. The same noises as last night. Shifting, shuffling, like someone was remodeling the apartment. I sat back down on the couch, irritated. I should have known. It was too good to be true. A lovely little apartment, almost no neighbors, in such a great location. I should have known there was a catch. I slumped on the couch gloomy. The TV was still on, though my favorite show had ended long ago. Now it was already 1 a.m. That's when it hit me. Again, exactly 1 a.m? Just like last night? Was this some sick joke? To start moving furniture at 1 a.m? Then a racket erupted from the neighbor's apartment, like someone had just started up a 100-year-old washing machine. My couch vibrated, the wall hummed, and something seemed to clatter on the other side. Indignant, I turned up the volume of my TV. If it's war, fine, war it is. Tomorrow I'd be working from home anyways. I could deal with their noise tonight. The documentary about overweight people was now blaring so loud it gave me a headache. But I didn't back down. If they weren't going to mind themselves, then I'd show them. Then suddenly, someone knocked on my door. No, pounded on it, angrily. I got mad too. They're the ones making noise and they're pounding on my door? This was the second night I'd been woken up by their midnight remodeling. I stomped to the door and yanked it open. Standing there was a sleepy-looking man in a bathrobe and pajamas. Not at all who I was expecting. "Man, are you insane?" he began. "It's 1:30 in the morning and you're blasting your TV. Are you out of your mind?" I stammered, flustered. I was just fighting with the neighbors. The man squinted at me in confusion, as if I'd said something impossible. "Which neighbors?" he sneered. "No one's lived next to you for years. And the people below you moved out last month. Both places are empty." A heavy silence fell. I didn't know what to say. The man looked both irritated, tired, and deeply contemptuous. "Turn down the TV," he snapped finally. "I can hear it 2 floors down. I'm trying to sleep." Yes, sorry. It won't happen again," I mumbled nervously. But then it hit me. What if this guy could only hear my TV, but not that horrendous banging and clattering coming from next door? As he turned to leave, I called after him. "Wait," I said. "You're sure you didn't hear anything else besides my TV?" "No," he shot back, his expression hard. "Now turn it down, or next time I'm calling the cops." He went down the stairs, leaving me alone with my own thoughts. I quickly switched off the TV. Better not give him another reason to complain. But then the question gnawed at me. What was going on next door, and how come no one else seemed to notice? My day was awful. No matter how much I thought work would distract me, I couldn't focus on anything except what the hell was going on in the apartment next door. What was all this about? I kept listening during the day, straining my ears, waiting to hear something, but nothing. Even during my meeting, my mind wandered. I was wondering if I'd catch a sound. My boss even snapped at me, asking if I was paying attention, because it was obvious my head was somewhere else entirely. By the end of the day, I felt like I had enough. I'd be better off at home. Maybe I just needed a walk in the afternoon. Otherwise, I really would go crazy obsessing over the noises next door. As soon as I stepped out of my apartment, I saw the one neighbor on my floor. The elderly woman reaching the top of the stairs. "Good afternoon," I greatly politely. She only nodded, breathing heavily. She was carrying a big shopping bag. She must have been exhausted. But as soon as she realized which apartment I had come out of, it was like she got spooked. She hurried towards her own place with the heavy bag. I didn't think twice. I hurried after her and offered my help. No need, son," she said, eyes downcast, as if she didn't even want to look at me. "I can manage myself." "All right," I said kindly, "but then at least help me with one thing." "If I can, I'll try," the woman replied with a small laugh. "What is it you need?" Something was strange. She never stopped walking, as if she was trying to escape me. She kept her eyes on the floor, barely sparing me a glance. "Do you happen to know?" I pressed, even as she was practically running away from me. "What's going on in the apartment next to mine?" The woman didn't want to answer. She just kept heading to her door, mumbling to herself. She didn't say a word until we were right at her apartment. Up until then, she only puffed and sighed like she was searching for the right words. So you do know what the noises are at night, I insisted. I most certainly do not, she snapped as she unlocked the door. Without another word, she tried to slip inside, pretending I wasn't even there. But I can see you know something, I said, anger creeping into my voice. What's with the banging at 1 in the morning? The old woman turned back from her doorway. This time, she looked me straight in the eye. On her face, I could see it. Fear. Fear of something she maybe couldn't even speak about. Son, she said after a brief pause, don't ask questions. Don't look into it. Stay put. You'll be better off. And with that, as if closing the matter forever, she pulled her door shut right in my face. I just stood there, completely baffled. What did she mean? Don't look into it? You'll be better off? What was in the apartment? As I pressed my face to the wall, the murmuring voice suddenly grew clearer. I could hear the man speaking, but it didn't make any sense. He was reciting numbers, one after another. 20240823, 20240826, 2024200830. After a moment of thinking, I pieced it together. These were dates. Dates for next week. What the hell did that mean? What was going to happen then? And then the banging started again. It sounded like someone had shoved a ridiculously heavy suitcase right against my wall. I jumped back in fright. Did they realize I'd been listening? But I quickly dismissed the thought, because now I had heard voices from outside, talking. People were speaking in the hallways. This was my chance. No matter what anyone said, I had to find out what was going on in the apartment next door. The one that had kept me awake for 3 nights straight. I rushed to my door and I flung it open without thinking. There was a figure standing at the neighbor's door. He looked like a homeless man, though I couldn't see his face. He had a baseball cap, which was pulled low over his eyes. And on top of that, he had a hood drawn tight. His thick coat was soaked and he was dressed as if it weren't the middle of August. Hey, I called out immediately. Mind telling me what the hell you're doing in the neighbor's place? I barely got the words out before the figure shoved an envelope through the neighbor's mail slot and he bolted down the stairs. That was it. My blood boiled. This bastard had probably broken into an empty apartment pretending no one lived there, and now he was the one keeping me up at night. I wasn't about to let this die. Still barefoot, in just a tank top and underwear, I tore after him. The man, realizing I was chasing him, started running faster, practically leaping down the stairs. Stop, you bastard! I shouted after him. What the hell are you doing in there? But the figure didn't answer. He only ran harder. Stop, damn it! I screamed furiously. But barefoot and rushing, I missed a step. I hissed in pain as I crashed down on my knee. The man didn't even glance back. He vanished around the last bend of the stairwell. He was probably out on the street already. I was never going to find out who he was. Cursing under my breath, I sat on the edge of the stairs, rubbing my throbbing ankle. I'd wrenched it badly in my stupid rush. Just then, a young woman appeared, coming up the stairs. She froze when she saw me sitting there. She said nervously, good evening? It clicked right away. She lived on the 2nd floor. If I remembered correctly, and she must have been coming home from a party. She looked a little tipsy. Hey, I muttered. Go on, don't worry, I live up on the 5th. Just had a little accident, that's all. The girl gave me a strange smile. Clearly unsure what to make of finding me sitting there in the middle of the night. Then she slipped past without another word, hurrying upstairs. Wait a sec, I called after her. You didn't happen to see anyone leave through the front door, did you? She turned back hesitating, thinking. No, I don't think so, she said finally. I was sitting in my boyfriend's car out front for at least 20 minutes and no one came out in that time. Sorry. Then she turned and kept going upstairs. I stayed where I was, rubbing my aching ankle, and only one thought burned in my mind: that damn apartment next door. That night, I figured it was best not to mess around with the neighbor again. I was tired and I had work the next day, but when I woke up in the morning, I decided I wasn't going to work after all. My ankle had swollen up badly, and it was hard to even stand. So I had an awkward call with my boss, telling him I'd be working from home for a while. The day dragged on. I wrapped up my foot, took some meds, hoping it would help. By the time the day finally crawled by, I was exhausted. I ordered some takeout and decided I'd just ignore the neighbor's place for now. If I kept obsessing, I was going to lose my mind. But after 3 nights of being jolted away at 1 a.m., I passed out almost immediately. I woke to shouting. Someone was yelling, loud, angry. I couldn't understand the words, it wasn't even my own language. But by the tone alone, it sounded like someone was having a heated argument. I went to the bathroom to pull myself together, but just moments later I heard more shouting. This time it was different. Louder, harsher. It sounded like a fight. Shouts, crashing noises, furniture clattering, heavy thuds. I couldn't take it anymore. This was ending tonight. I limped out into the hallway. The corridor was silent, as if nothing at all was happening inside the neighbor's apartment. I pounded on their door, loud enough to rattle it on its hinges. Nothing, not a word, not a sound. It was as if the apartment really were empty and no one had been brawling inside just seconds earlier. I knocked again, harder this time, the door shaking under my fist. I knew someone was in there. I'd been hearing them every night for days. Still no answer. "Could you keep it down already?" I yelled at the door. But again, silence. The entire floor was dead quiet. I licked my lips nervously. Seething, unbelievable, the kind of crap some people pull. Furious, I turned back towards my apartment, glaring daggers at the neighbor's door. But just as I reached my own, I heard it, a click. The neighbor's door had unlocked. I froze, my eyes looking on the entrance across from me, waiting to see who or what would come out. But no one stepped through. The door swung open, wide, and yet not a single sound came from inside. I stood there, rooted in place, staring at the dark opening. Who had opened that door, if no one was in there? "Hello? Is anyone here?" I called into the open doorway, my voice a little shaky. As angry as I'd been just moments ago, the door swinging open on its own had rattled me. But curiosity was stronger. What were my neighbors doing here? Neighbors who supposedly didn't even live in this place. "I'm coming in." I ventured further inside. I just want to talk to you about keeping it down at night. I crept slowly into the apartment. The entryway was completely empty, looking as though no one had lived there for years. The few pieces of furniture were draped in plastic, though really there wasn't much furniture at all. But just then, I saw where the noise was coming from. One of the interior doors was ajar, a red glow spilling out from within, and I thought I saw movement. Sorry, hello, is anyone here?" I called again, hoping someone would step out. No one came, not a word, not a sound, not even a stir. I hesitated. What the hell was I doing in someone else's apartment? If they found me here, they'd think I was a burglar and bash my head in. But something still pulled me forward. I pushed the door open wider, and what I saw inside froze me in place. It was a room set up for developing photographs. The red lamps glowed faintly. Strange equipment cluttered every surface, the kind used for making prints. But what shocked me the most was every single photo was of me, taken as if someone had been inside my apartment, constantly photographing me, eating breakfast, sleeping, even showering, all pounding on the wall in frustration, yelling at the noisy neighbors. What the hell was this? How had someone gotten into my apartment to take these pictures? Was it under surveillance? But these weren't security cam shots. They looked like someone had been standing right next to me, snapping pictures, but there's no one else in my apartment, just me. I stepped closer, inspecting the photos. All of them were me. Sometimes scruffier, sometimes with different hair, but unmistakably me. Then I turned them over, and I saw the backs. Dates. Some showed times that hadn't even happened yet. Others from when I hadn't even moved in. Different furniture, different clothes, yet some were exactly the same. Like Tuesday night eating Chinese takeout, zoning out in front of my favorite show. What the hell was going on? Is someone spying on me? Then came the real shock. One photo slipped in among the others. The date on it was exactly 2 weeks from now. And there I was again. Only this time, I was lying in the middle of the room, right where my couch stands, now sprawled on the rug, gutted and bled out. My blood ran cold. Even if these photos were doctored, how and why? Panic took over. I had to get out of this apartment. Now. I bolted from the room, out into the hallway. The building was still silent, eerily so, like no one at all lived here. I slammed the neighbor's door shut and rushed back into my own apartment. I paced back and forth, gasping, what should I do? What does a person even do in a situation like this? There was only one sane decision left. Get out. Move out of here as soon as possible. Then, standing there in my living room, my knees trembling, I saw something out of the corner of my eyes, just over my shoulder. A flash. A camera flash.